Rhythm Heaven Fever, or Beat the Beat Paradise for those of you across the pond, takes us back to the button controls we know and love from the first game, not to mention the first and unfortunately only console release. Despite that though, this series makes the transition flawlessly, almost like it was always on consoles. Now you could make an argument for something like Tengoku working on a large display, but with the exception of one spectacular failure, there's no system something like Rhythm Heaven DS could work on. A and B are your best pals on this rhythm journey. You're always going to be using the A button every minigame, but the game might ask you to use both at once, like a pinching motion, which is brilliant considering some of the stuff that does. Games like Screwbot Factory make you use the motion to clasp a claw around these tiny little robot guys. I don't know about you, but I care way more about these guys than any old lousy Philbots. The Screwbots feel less stereotypical robot and more little creature to me, so when I don't finish screwing them together, or God forbid break them, a part of my heart just decays. Now's the part where I shoot through a bunch of other games, and something tells me I'm gonna have lots to say about these. Like, I can show you this and you'd be like, how could you get a bunch of words out about that? I'm glad you asked! Air Rally is an airborne badminton game between Dog and Cat, Baxter, and Forthington. Now, I must emphasize that this game does a terrible job of putting the bad in badminton. Your sole reliable audio cue is going to be the cat's directions.
4!
He's so jovial, and a real compliment to the satisfying sounds in this one. All that to say that this game gives you just long enough to get comfy with the visual cues, and then it dumps a bunch of clouds on you. They're gone at the end, but the final hit is vital if you don't want to feel absolutely worthless. Bossa Nova. Aw, I love a thriving relationship. The inputs for this one aren't crazy, you're just switching between two different patterns constantly, but it can swap anytime. It always warns you, but you have to be ready, or you're getting so pummeled by these shapes. This is one of the games that feels sort of abstract, you know? There's plenty more examples of that in this game alone, like Seesaw exists in its own little world, Donk Donk has always mystified me, and Forklifter uses a 3-pronged fork, so yeah, that's definitely beyond my comprehension. Back on topic, I love the art style in this one. It's kinda like these two are climbing up a mural. What do you mean I should go pro?
Airbu Dunce, your transition between this game and Double Date sucked so bad that I had to donate 3 of my kidneys.
Double Date. I wanted to mention this one because, like, look at it. These guys are so sweet. Maybe it's the slow music making me all gooey inside. There's 3 different timings for each ball, and this is just one of the most satisfying games to plop the inputs in. Look at how scared the weasel guys are. Man, maybe I just have a thing for the romance in this series. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the girl's outfit in Double Date 2 being kinda... I couldn't pass up talking about Fever's Karate Man, and like, I guess they haven't changed much. But we've got combos now instead of kicks. Now we're on a whole new plane of satisfying. Getting that button release just right is euphoric, and Joe is way more expressive in this game. Rhythm Heaven Fever knows just how to make you feel good, which might not last once you start listening to the lyrics. Not the only bittersweet lyrics you're gonna hear, but if you played the DS game, you might interpret this as a sequel to the song, and that one's Karate Man. Perhaps from the boyfriend's perspective. It's touching to see this sort of continuity in the music. Top-notch stuff here. Alright, it'd be pretty hard for me to not talk about Ringside. What a mundane concept for a game. An interview. How does a game about a f***ing interview become one of the most well-known things about the series? Is it the catchy music? Is it the character designs here? Perhaps the contrast between the small reporter and this wrestler? Maybe it's his poses and the sounds he makes. I'm not making it my job to look into how and why this thing got as huge as it did, but what I can tell you is that this game earned its reputation. You press A to... Sometimes you gotta...
Whoa, you go, big guy!
And you press A and B to... I could try diving into what the context of the interview is, what the hell he's agreeing to, but again, not my job. Now, as for the sequels, not much has changed. Generally, they're more visually distinct from their original iterations. However, there seem to be a few less games with new controls, and I guess a few less sequel games in general. It's not something you think of until you look into it, but I just wanted to mention it anyway. Here we have Hole in One, a tutorial minigame that blasts away anything else that claims to be the same. I mean, when the competition is Karate Man GBA, Bad Karate Man GBA, and Cheez-It penetration, it's not a debate. It's not fair though, since Hole in One may be one of my favorite games in the series, full stop. It all goes back to the satisfying sounds with this game, doesn't it? Listening to that ball hit the bottom of the cup is music to my ears. If you were wondering why I just rattled off about Hole in One in the sequel segment, no you weren't. You know where I was going with this. Hole in One 2 is much more intense in comparison. The player gets dependent on audio cues as a result of the monkeys stopping for nothing. That said, it's all very manageable. I mean, it's based on the tutorial level and has no tempo changes. Look at me do them both flawlessly. Why don't I go for perfects again? The quality of rhythm games here is unrivaled by any other game in the series, but there's still a dud or two. Just look at Love Rap. Particularly in the beginning, inputs are few and far between. It just makes you wait. It takes so long to get off the ground, and when you play Love Rap 2, it just makes this look pathetic in comparison. You're being asked for constant inputs one after another. It's not like Hole in One 2, but it's definitely enough to be distinct from Love Rap 1 in the best way possible. It too has a slow start, but it doesn't demand as much patience out of the player, and I am very impatient. Love Rap 2 is a massive improvement to a game I didn't exactly care for, and I wasn't expecting it to come out of the sequel with words this positive.
Alright Air, but is there a broad conclusion you can draw about the sequel games as a whole?
The sequel games as a whole are kind of evil. They'll go out of their way to stomp on you from every angle possible. Built to Scale 2 seems to have much larger tempo changes throughout the game. It was a bit tricky how the first one fluctuated in speed, but 2 does it with pride. Screwbot Factory 2 forgot to pay the light bill. The funnier part, though, is that it just blasts you with white robots all at once and gives you no breaks. There's also Figure Fighter 2 that tosses you in with a black screen and a cue right off the bat. And I swear, every playthrough I forget about this part. This isn't all either. There's a pretty nasty trick later on that you probably already know about, but first I get to talk about the remixes again. I was just gonna go through all of them, but really, what the hell am I gonna say about Remix 2? I'll give you some highlights, which just so happen to be the latter half of them. The Fever remixes do this funny thing where it gives me a higher opinion of every game featured. It's kinda why it's hard for me to hate any of the rhythm games here. I know I was just giving Love Rap the business, but it has great synergy with the other games in its set. Hell, I wasn't really crazy about any of the games in set 6, except Bossa Nova, of course. Donk Donk was okay. Okay, maybe I do love the games in set 6. Its remix just makes them so much better in hindsight, though. Then we have Remix 7, and just listen. I try not to play music as much. I know you probably came here to listen to someone gush about a game you happen to also like, but I can't help but let the music play sometimes. It genuinely makes a difference to me when games have great music, and I think a rhythm game better have some good jams. As for the remix itself, I find it to be very thoughtful gameplay-wise. If you're still tapping in the transition between Tap Troop and Cheerleaders, the game gives you a grace period and doesn't count your inputs. It's very beginner-friendly, I think. It doesn't punish you for continuing when you have no way of knowing what's next. On top of that, I just really like the games here. Karate Man and Cheerleaders are among my favorites, and Shrimp Shuffle and Tap Troop are just something pleasant for my thumb to do. I like this one a lot. These next two I've been really itching to talk about. Remember that thing I said about the bittersweet lyrics or whatever? That was a while ago, so maybe not. Anyway, change of plans, this is just sad.
What can I do? What can I do? The only one for me is you. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do?
As you can see, this is gut-wrenching. The worst part is, you're playing this more than once. Alright, maybe I didn't this time somehow, but this is famously one of the hardest remixes in the game. Timing for everything is just so much tighter with the notably fast tempo. But there's something comical about making the player replay one of the saddest songs in the series. Apparently this is common practice for rhythm games though. Either way, the devs were kinda evil for this one. Not the most sinister 8th remix though. Alright, if you paid attention in the last video, you might suspect I have something to say about this remix in particular. And yeah, I do, but give me a minute. This remix is chaos. This and 8 are the only ones in the game that can use whatever games they want, and they can go all out with that. 8 and 9 are as different can be though, yet they still both go places you can't expect on a first playthrough. Here, however, it feels a lot more manageable. It doesn't exactly pump the brakes though. This is the fast remix, and it just happens to be after 8, so stiff competition. And can I just say how much I love the choice to fire one of the board meeting pigs? Turns out firing 25% of your workforce goes with the music better. Right, the music. Okay, I don't usually dive into the lyrics themselves, but I feel like I personally need to spell out how special this song is to me.
They say it's still just nothing but a man's world. They say it's just too hard to find yourself.
So the POV here is lost in this man's world of sorts, having a hard time finding herself. Maybe an identity crisis of sorts.
No, you just can't leave the past behind you. You know you can't just live a life of shining glamour.
Alright, now it sounds like the POV is doubting herself, poor thing.
Herb, we all know where you're going with this, just get to the point.
The music plays on and on. Ooh, as you walk around the town. And the teardrops just keep falling down. And the teardrops just keep falling down. And the teardrops just keep falling down because I only wish I knew. Someday you'll find yourself and realize that you're beautiful.
It's f***ing trans, okay? I should say it's obviously a trans femme experience in particular going on here, but I guess other not cis people can listen to, I don't know, Flockstep. This bit's been unscripted. I was editing the video when I realized something. I wanted to do this bit where I use the game audio when the Screwbot guy says, "Oh yeah," you know. But I realized cheerleaders, they say "it's up to you" around the part the lady, what did she say? Yeah, it's the part where she says, "Someday you'll find yourself, you'll realize you're beautiful." That part, "it's up to you." It's up to you. My God, I'm right. I'm just right. It really is a trans allegory, ain't it? Well, we finally made it to the iconic 10th remix in this game. This thing has been memed to death, with plenty of edits under its belt, possibly triumphing over Ringside's popularity. Not for no reason, though. This may be the hardest stage in the series, and hell, I certainly wouldn't argue with that. Everything you've learned is barreling at you at a breakneck speed, and you're just going to be hoping by the end that you get by with the skin of your teeth. It can be unfortunate, since this remix is 4 minutes long. Oh yeah, look at this shit. The music fades out, then it keeps going. Well, now it's fading to black. They had me for a second, but they wouldn't do that again. Wait, I didn't get the paycheck! These slimy bastards throw in 2 fake-outs at the end. You know what the worst part is, though? Nobody's gonna fall for it. Let's be real. Anyone actively seeking out to play Rhythm Heaven Fever is more likely than not to have seen the final remix. So the surprise is spoiled. It'd be so nice to have a real story about how floored I was to see this game pull a stunt like that. I had to make up a scenario that's virtually unobtainable in this day and age, and chances are, I just ruined it for you too. Maybe I got a bit passionate there for a sec, but it just makes me sad, and hey, if the twist at the end of Remix 10 genuinely caught you off guard, please let me know. I just want to feel good about something, alright? Hey, look at that, it's time for the extras! I never really got into these. They're cool though, I like the Cupid one, but something interesting they've done is give us a handful of GBA rhythm games to play. I'll get back to you guys later. But hey, it looks like there's a separate menu for the 2-player games below. I have nothing else to say about the matter. Rhythm Heaven Fever is by far and away a massive improvement on the DS game. Maybe it doesn't seem like it since I was pretty fond of that game too, but there is so much more consistency in this one. I'm telling you now, if there's a Rhythm Heaven where I genuinely like nearly every stage, I think we've reached the top. It's no wonder this game is as popular as it is. Maybe one day we can have a game even better than this one. Or maybe we can get a game at all? This series hasn't had an entry in more than 8 years. Sunku had to have his vocal
Well
cords
everyone,
removed for cancer
that's our show.
treatment, and we really
Tune in
ought
next
to have
time to
Wednesday
see Air
World
blow a
Watch
fucking
All.
gasket.
Come on!